Hello, and you're very welcome to Kicking Match, a podcast all about the Irish League. My name is Peter Cinnamon, and what an incredible weekend of action. There was goals, there was drama, there was a red card for Glenavon, and I have no clue what actually happened, as it is me, Peter from the past, or at least Peter further in the past than I usually would be for you guys when I record this link. As of time of recording, I have no clue what happened this weekend, as I am away gallivanting on holiday. These podcasting soul traders need their break too. So what I've got for you instead, no chat about the games, but I do have a little game I like to call Irish League Fantasy Draft 11. The score is, I've got two other Irish League podcasters. They've come in and I've tasked them with picking an Irish League 11 for their brand new team from players that are currently playing in the league. Sounds complicated, probably is, but you can play along at home because I trust you are a smart Irish League cookie. Thank you so much for your support. I'll be back again soon, but for now, enjoy this pod. So yes, you've jumped on looking for some natterings about this week's games. That's if we had any games this weekend at all. But alas, I'm away on a magic mountain or someplace far, far away. But don't worry, I've got some good old Irish League content and chatter with kindred spirits this week. Two people that are in the dugout with me, rookies like myself who've jumped into this weird and wonderful Irish League podcasting game this year. We both took up the fight, the good fight of spreading chatter and crack about Irish League football. And like most things in the modern world, this is quite literally the first time I've ever met these blokes. You know, who needs meeting in a pub and all those type of things? You have to do it on a podcast for the first time. Digital meetups. This feels like a speed dating version of a podcast. So joining me this week, fellas, that I had a picture in my mind, but they're going to live up to it and more. Introducing Owen and Mark from the Fly Nets podcast.
Hello, hello.
How's it going?
Now, I just clocked there. I'm going to have to definitely keep it Owen and Mark because, you know, the whole Mark Owen thing is very tech.
That is, yeah. We're very different people with very different ideas.
Absolutely. You know, I know I'm a big man on the old boy bands and the crack, but I'll try to keep it focused on that. So essentially what we're doing this week is I've got a very convoluted game. It's all about picking a fantasy Irish League team. The idea is that each of these two fine fellas are entering a brand new team that's jumping right into the Irish League. It's really just a convoluted way to pick a fantasy 11, but we're kind of going down the lines of how some of those big American sports do, where if you join the league, you get the chance to steal some players from the other team. So I asked these guys to go out and put together what their either fantasy 11 or how they would build a brand new Irish League club. They can pick any player they want from any team, but they've got one simple rule. There can only be two players from each team. This is something I quite literally have not done myself, but I think would be good crack to go through. So they've been burrowing away, picking their teams. They've even got a manager, and I'm going to see how it all pans out. What restrictions, how will they help? Will they create pressure into a diamond, or will they wilt? I am very much looking forward to this. Before we actually get into the teams, fellas, are you fantasy football players to begin with? I know this is slightly different, but do you play fantasy football, and did that help you pick these teams?
I attempt to play fantasy football. I am very poor at fantasy football. Premier League wise, I really bottled it because I didn't pick Haaland, of course. That was just out of spite, and I thought, you know, Mo Salah's going to pull me out of the bag here, but he didn't. So I have fallen too far behind already. Irish League wise, had a great start. Captain Ben Kennedy first week, and then he, of course, got injured. So yeah, it just doesn't get any better for me at all.
You're the Scud then, essentially.
I am the Scud. That is my nickname. Yep, the Scud.
Well, I definitely scudded Ben Kennedy there because I was doing laps around the living room after that first game, and it's all gone very poorly since. But at least in one of them, I can swap them out. What about yourself, Owen? You much of a fantasy player?
Yeah, I would get involved with the Irish League one a lot more than the Premier League one. I've kind of just fallen off it already. I just can't keep an eye on both of them, you know. But I'm looking at the table here. I am 32nd in the overall league in the Irish League one, so 20 points behind you, Peter. I'm coming for you, like.
You see, I've had a very lucky one. As much as I talked about Ben Kennedy, my big joyous descent as I jumped on Shevlin just before they strap the rocket to him and escalate it up. And it's the long game here. As much as I've got little short-term buzz, I've got to keep it going. That's going to be the thing. But you know what? Before we start getting into who some of the players you picked and some of the ideas, the strategy behind this brand new team you're both going to pitch into the league. You're brand new podcasters, just because, we're in the same world now this year. Where did the idea come from, starting Fly Nets? What made you think, what? I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to share my opinions on Irish League football, because there's plenty of people who are willing to give it straight back.
Yeah, it was probably 2 or 3 years. We've sort of joked about, we should start a podcast. We should do this. And whenever Linfield were playing Bodo Glimt in the Champions League game, I actually saw a wee ad go out by a Bodo Glimt podcast, and they were looking for a Linfield fan to jump on and sort of explain who we were and what we were all about. I jumped onto that podcast and really saw how easy it was, how fun it was, how much the guys got out of it, how much they enjoyed it, and how much I enjoyed it as well. And then just got onto one straight away, and I was like, listen, we can do this. It's not easy, but we can do it for sure, and we can really enjoy it, and that's what we've been doing. I think we're 6 episodes deep on now, and we're really making the most of it and really enjoying it. Owen loves his stats more than I do. Owen's got all the spreadsheets and the Excel filled out.
I clocked that.
So
I've clocked those stats. I've listened back and went, where is he getting these? Where's he stealing these? Marshall Gillespie getting these out here. These are fantastic stats. So you're the stat man then, Owen?
Yeah, that's what Mark likes to call me. I'm a big nerd, so I love the mathematical side of football as well as on the pitch. So yeah, both kind of interest me. It's very difficult as well to choose the name of a podcast. I'm sure you went through the same as well, Peter.
Oh, I did. Very much so. And what's really funny about that, just the naming thing, is that I went through so many. I come from a music background, so it felt as though I was like trying to name a band, and I kind of had all these ideas, and maybe you guys just kept it to yourself, but sometimes when you ask a lot of people, that can like really play with your head, where you're like, oh, maybe they should do this, and maybe should do that, and for a while I was thinking, should I jump in with other people, or should I kind of be this weird solo ship and bring other people in? And sometimes it's like a band, you've just got to commit to it, because for most people, you're going to suggest it to them and they're going to be like, nah, I don't know about that, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? And ultimately you're the one that's going to have to say it over and over and over again, so you got to love it even if other people don't. And like most weird band names from whatever it is, 1975, Biffy Clyro, whatever nonsense, it makes sense eventually, he famously said.
Absolutely, yeah.
We had a couple of names sort of beforehand, but there was none really sort of stuck out and really sat like Fly Nets did. It's probably a term that only people from Northern Ireland would know.
Tell me this, because Mark, you're a Blue man, and Owen, you're a Glentoran fan. How did this connection? Are you long-term mates? Is this like a partnership across the weird rusty fence at the Oval, or how did this all come together?
So yeah, Owen and I went to school together. So we went to primary school together. Owen was a year above me. And of course, on the non-uniform days, Owen would have been wearing his Glentoran top and I would have been wearing my Linfield top. And probably for, let me say, 80% of primary school, I was always laughing at Owen. But there was that one magical year for Owen that the Glens actually did win the league, the 2009 season, and Owen was for once happy. And then Owen got rid of me for a year into secondary school, and then the year later, I ended up at the same secondary school. So it just continued on. To be fair, high school wasn't great for either of us, because Cliftonville and Crusaders turned good in those years, but made the most of it.
What a love story, eh? A love story across Zoom now.
Love
Absolutely.
is.
Mark had his Linfield top with Thompson in the back. I had my Glentoran top with Hamilton in the back. It was a perfect rivalry in school.
It feels like a nostalgic era already for Irish League football. But this little game we're playing, this Fantasy 11, it's all about the here and the now. So let's discuss the teams that are picking these players. We're letting you both pick the same players. It's not like if one of you pick one's player, it can't be brought in. We're living in two different multiverses where you're both entering the league as this weird Team 13, or you're maybe, I don't know, kicking Dungannon out of the league and taking the 12th spot. So let's start with yourself, Owen. Who is entering the league under your tutelage?
Yeah, so I have went for what's going to be a local club for myself, obviously based in Lisburn. So kind of took what Harlan Wolf Weathers have done and put my own twist on it. So we're going to go for the Lisburn Weavers. Of
Lisburn.
course, Lisburn famous for their linen production, of course. Probably the only thing it's famous for. But yes, we're going to go for the Lisburn Weavers. They will be the newest club into the Irish League
Wow.
system.
I love it. Mark, who's entering the league in your...
This is a conversation that I often have with fellow Blue men, because every game there's someone that we say, oh, he was here for a while. Oh, he never really made it here.
Okay.
So we have come with the team name, the Old Blue Crew. So you can guess where I'm going with this. Owen's shaking his head in disbelief.
Okay, I think this is a little hint. This is dipping and diving, creating this team. I get, because one thing I said to you guys is I want to talk about philosophy. What is it going to be? Is there like an idea, some sort of pitch? So, I open it up. You guys can pick an 11, maybe a manager as well, and how you guys want to play. It might be you just want to pick the best 11 players you can, and you want to win now. You want to get some legends through the door. You want to build it on youth. So it's all up in the air. So we'll go back to the Lisburn Weavers and we will start. Well, you can pick anywhere in the pitch. If I was to say to you, this was some sort of, I don't know, weird college draft and you had to pick one player first, when I asked you to pick a team, who would have been, wherever in the pitch, your number one pick from the league?
I'll first of all explain my philosophy for picking these players so it'll make more sense as to who I've picked. So I'm
excuses in early.
I'm a big Football Manager fan, and obviously when you start a save on that, they give you a philosophy of kind of a transfer policy almost. So my aim is to sign players aged 25 and younger. This is a long-term plan. We've got 5 years to get to the Premiership here. So most of these players will be kind of going into their prime years within my reign here at the club. So the biggest pick, I'll go for my attacking midfielder, Ben Kennedy.
Ben Kennedy, straight in.
The star of the team.
First cruise player as well. I'll stick him in there. So the man, perhaps the talisman, but the first one off the board, if we were playing by these rules, is Mr. Ben Kennedy for the Lisburn Weavers. Going to Mark and his...
I think this Ben Kennedy's a Lisburn man as well, so, playing for the badge.
Hey, hometown club, he supported the Weavers all when he was a youth, and he's finally coming back home. Going to what I'm going to probably say throughout this podcast, the OBC, the Old Blue Crew. Who's your number one pick if you could steal any player away from these Weavers and make sure they couldn't have them? Now, they will be allowed to have them. But if that was the case, you wanted to make your big statement, number one pick, who would it be, Mark, for the Old Blue Crew?
So the Old Blue Crew, again, we're going to chat about philosophy. Each player must have played for Linfield in the first team. It can't have been someone who has maybe played for the under 14s or something random like that. The one player that I would want from any Irish League team, regardless of whether this is fantasy or real life, and Owen's going to smile at this, but it's Conor McManaman.
Wow, yeah. That's a strong one. I said, who is your flagship player that you wanted to bring in? And it's like Glentoran's best player. But you know what? You're committed to this because, it's not about ego. It's not about rivalry. It's about building this very specific team of players who used to play for Linfield. Although when I think about ex-Linfield players, because I kind of had a feeling when you said Old Blue Crew, I kind of have a feeling where this is going to go. But I wouldn't really put... Isn't it funny? I wouldn't really put down Conor McManaman as, oh yeah, he used to play for the Blues. What's your best memory of McManaman coming out in a Blues shirt?
I don't even have one, but he's really turned the corner. Probably one of those players that when you let them go, you're like, oh, he never really kicked the ball for us. But as Owen and I have discussed on many different occasions, he's one of the very best players in the league. As much as I dislike saying it, and he's scoring goals for the wrong team, he's by far one of the best players in the league, and I am very jealous of Owen getting to watch him every week.
Well, just to go back to your real team, your real love, Linfield, like if I was to put the question to you based on the here and the now, if you could pick any player from another team to play for Linfield, is it McManaman? Is he the one straight up that you would want to slid into that team, or is there somebody else you would love to just go, yeah, that's the one player from the league I would love to be playing for the Blues?
At the minute, I would take him in a heartbeat. It's probably a position that Linfield are a wee bit soft on, with injuries and stuff coming in. I'd say we're probably a few numbers down. in sort of the attacking midfielder winger position. We've got a lot of great holding midfielders, I think. Your Mulgrews and your Shields and all those great players, Fallon as well. But I think that McManaman would probably bring a completely different aspect into that Linfield side if we could pry him from McDermott's hands, of course.
It's only fair that I put this question to you, Owen. What player from throughout the league, if you could, would you bring to Glentoran, and why is it Kirk Miller?
No, not Kirk Miller. We've got enough strikers and attackers in the team. I'd say Chris Shields easily. Yeah, I think he is up there with Conor McManaman as one of the players that everyone agrees that probably one of the best in the league. And I just think that's the type of player that Glens are probably missing in that midfield. I think we tried to sign him at the same time Linfield did, but Linfield got there first, and he's honoured his agreement to sign for them. But yeah, I think if he goes to anyone's team really in the league, he completely changes it. He looks so comfortable, never looks out of breath or anything. He just dominates midfield. Even in Europe as well, he looked really, really good there too. But I think, yeah, Chris Shields would probably be an easy pick for me there.
You know what? You're so right. I'm really coming into the thinking process that, he might be actually one of the best midfielders this league has ever seen. And look, we're all youngish fellas, we can hardly get into proper big 90s, late 80s Irish league, but from the period that at least I've been watching, he is just magic, and I have seen few better midfield performances quite like that second leg in particular of that big European game. But we'll not get into all that again. I'm sure that's a wound that you don't want picked at, Mark. But let's get back into these teams, and we're going to shoot all the way straight to the back. I want to talk about keepers, and we'll almost go snake style. Going to you, Mark. Who's the ex-Linfield? No, I think I might know. Who's the ex-Linfield player that you're sticking down as your keeper?
See, I can't really go for Roy Carroll because he doesn't play at probably a high enough level for me.
That's key. Key thing is you need for this. We're looking to steal from other Irish League teams. I don't know as I really said earlier, but yes, sorry. Back to your keeper.
I will be Robin Garth Dean from Coleraine.
Thought as much.
Absolutely excellent goalkeeper in his time at Linfield. Probably only overshadowed by the fact that Roy Carroll was in that team at that time. Would have probably got a lot more minutes for us. But yeah, I think Garth Dean is an excellent goalkeeper, and that's why he would be my number one.
Do you miss him at all at the Blues, or are you very much happy with who you've got with Johns?
I think in Chris Johns, we've got the best goalkeeper in the league. Maybe Owen will agree with that. I don't know whether he will go that far to agree with that. But yeah, for me, Johns has been a standout performer for us. Pulls off big saves in games where a lot of other keepers would maybe switch off. Linfield have the joy of having the ball a lot of the time. And I think one thing that we did notice with Johnny Tuffley was that his concentration maybe did lapse when he wasn't being peppered with shots and under pressure a lot of the time. But yeah, I think Chris Johns does an excellent job at that, to be quite honest. And I'm happy enough with Johns at the minute, but the old Blue Crew will have to settle for Gareth Dean as second best.
Strong choice. Owen, gotten us down to you. Who's keeping the ball out of the net for you guys?
Yeah, so I've gone for one of the young and upcoming goalkeepers. I went for Declan Dungannon Swifts.
Ooh.
A goalkeeper that really impressed me during his time at Cliftonville, and has also impressed me at his time at Dungannon Swifts as well. Glentoran played Dungannon Swifts a couple of weeks ago at Stanmore Park, and the fella pulled off some cracking saves just to back up my high thoughts on him. Very unlucky that game to concede a late penalty, but I think he'll go quite far. I remember whenever Dean Shields signed him for Dungannon Swifts, he'd said, this is the type of player that'll go across the water in a number of years. So we'll keep an eye on him there and see if he's still got that ability to go across the water. And I can only see him really getting better as he grows with more experience.
Sticking with youth there, and also a big pick there because that's a non-top six. I know there's only 11 spots on each of these first 11s, but picking a player outside of the top six means it can kind of open things up. And you're absolutely right. That's a player who's really, not to be cliched, filled out. He's a big, tall, imposing presence there. And he's bounced around a bit. Then he poured it down for a season or so. And, he never really established himself at Cliftonville. And particularly when that goalkeeper position has been such a rotation. It's been in and out all the time. I'm somewhat surprised that they said, you know what, we're good here. We're going to spend money to bring other players in, and balls in his court to make them regret that choice. And you think going to a club like Dungannon, gives him the opportunity to say, hey, you were wrong to drop me, and now I'm going to show you why I'm as good as I'm sure he thinks he is. So, yeah, a really interesting pick. And to stick with you then, was there any other young keepers that you kind of had an inkling for? I know we have quite a lot of experienced players in this league. It's not really a position where there's loads of teenagers running about. But was there anything where you kind of thought, maybe go for him instead?
So I'd also thought Jethro Barr as well, put it down. I think I seen someone post stats the other week about how many saves he makes on average every game, and it's ridiculous in comparison with other goalkeepers. But I was thinking, is he suited to a team where he is conceding more shots? Sometimes you need a goalkeeper where my defense is going to be basically unbeatable, but he needs to come up in the big moments and make big saves. Could Jethro Barr do that? We have yet to see him really playing a defence where he's in that kind of situation, but two very talented young goalkeepers in the league for sure. But I went for Declan Dunn over Jethro Barr.
The one thing I'll say about Jethro Barr is it's hard when you're at a team like Portadown, but if you ever see the montages of his distribution, like when he gets it right, I think it's obviously something he's really keen on. Have you seen where he gets the ball and he looks up and he just whacks it with his foot and it just pings straight to whoever it is. I don't know, Sally or one of the random wingers, and they just pick it out of the air and you can just see him hit it and just like watch like it's a golf shot as it fires straight at the player and it whacks off his chest. He always looks really pleased with himself. So for distribution, probably Jethro Barr would have that in that debate, but Declan Dunn, what an incredible future he has. I'm going to stick with you, Owen. How many players are you playing at the back for this Lisburn Weavers team of yours?
Yeah, I'm going to go 5 at the back.
Oh, 5 at the back. I don't know if that's old school or new school. Before we jump into your players you've picked, Mark, what are you going for? 4 at the back or?
Oh, I've gone the true Linfield way, which is 4 at the back, because 5 at the back makes me sick.
It just wouldn't be the Linfield way, would it?
No, definitely not.
Did Linfield know how to play? Like, imagine playing 3 at the back. I know they kind of did a wee bit in the European game where everyone was playing everywhere, but it's just weird, you know? Just weird.
Yeah.
But we'll go back to this weird 5 at the back of Owen, and we'll start with the fullbacks or wing backs. What are we saying here?
Wing backs, yeah. It's like a back 3 or back 5. Kind of like a medley of both, I guess, if they're attacking it.
I get you. Here, it's new football, lads. It's 2022. Positionless football. Do you want to start on the right or the left?
We'll start on the left.
Okay.
Easy pick for me, Levi Ives.
Mm.
I think regardless of age, I think he's the best left back in the league, attacking wise and defensively. Injuries have been an issue for him, but whenever he is fully fit, it completely changes that Cliftonville side, and I think that's why they could compete so well last season. I think last season was probably one of the first years he didn't really have a significant injury. I know this year he suffered from a broken foot quite early on, which is upsetting for Cliftonville fans, but yeah, I think if he's fully fit, he adds an awful lot to the left side of the fence there.
Mark, there's no way you can somehow squeeze Levi Ives as to being some sort of ex-blue man. No, who's your left back in this team?
I've had to sort of pluck a player probably who's a bit older than Owen's nice youthful team, but Sean Ward has been drafted in as my fullback. Now I don't know whether Sean would be happy enough with me saying he's probably not going to be the best fullback in the league this season, but yeah, definitely a player who has obviously won everything for Linfield. He won everything there was to win. He also went on to win league titles previously at the Glens and Crusaders. Well travelled, well versed, and he's probably one of the more experienced players in this team. But I'm happy to have him as a fullback.
Does Sean Ward's time with the Blues, Owen, does that somehow, when I think of Sean Ward, I would think more of his Glentoran days, but him going on and having all the success with the Blues, does that kind of have a tiny bit of a mark in the eyes of Glentoran fans? You just feel as though, you know what, you've left us, you're gone, you played in our shirt once and you're nothing to do with us anymore, or is there still a bit of love and affection for the man?
I'll be honest, I have never heard anyone booed as much as Sean Ward. Honestly, at Glenavon games, because he's usually taking throw-ins for them as well, so he's really close to the touchline, and like it's so many boos. Like I don't even think Linfield fans currently get as much as he does for Glenavon. Like,
wow, he's like playing for a different team and never forget.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Never forget. Well, Owen, we'll jump over to the right hand side. I'm trying to think who would be based on your under 25 rules, but I'm interested on the right. Who have we got?
25 or younger. So I'm
or younger. Okay.
Lyndon Kane.
Ah,
He is 25, so borderline there, but it's in the rules, it's in the philosophy. So we're going Lyndon Kane.
Hey,
I know he's playing centre midfield this season, but traditionally I see him more as a right back. I don't really know how it's going. I haven't really seen Corey in too much. But yeah, we're going to go for him at right back. Can attack really comfortably. Seen plenty of that last season. Just seems to drive with the ball. He's so fast as well. But then also tracking back, he's got an absolute engine on him. He just never stops. He's a bit like Sule, like that. Just one of those players that never quits. So I think it's important to have a bit of energy, especially if you're playing at wing back. So he suits his system quite well.
versatile, versatile. That's
Yeah.
good. I can see how this is working for yourself, Mark. Is there going to be actually a Linfield player in this team, or is it all going to be ex-Linfield players?
No, we've gone down the X route. I don't know whether I should have gone for Linfield players, but anyway, we'll stick with what we've got. Um, Certainly a very experienced head, probably a player who wasn't a centre half at his time at Linfield, but has sort of molded into that role. I've gone for
Mm.
Carrick's Jim Irvin as one of the centre backs. This isn't going to be the paciest back four we've ever seen in the league, but yeah, Jim Irvin, obviously, again, one of those players who won absolutely everything at Linfield, and yeah, part of the clean sweep winning team as well, not long ago. So very experienced, very well respected player in the Irish League, I would say, and probably one of those ones who I would suggest would go on the management, I would say, in my opinion. But yeah, Jim Irvin's going to be one of my other centre halves.
He's a player I honestly can't believe is still playing top division football, but he's again one of these ex Linfield pros who just keep on going. You'd think you'd be like, you know what, lads, I've been there, I've done that. But even for Carrick, he's getting in, he's fighting. He just is a prime example of professionalism. It's just incredible to see him and another fantastic pickup last season for Carrick, and still is doing the business week in and week out. Mark, we're going to have to complete this back four of yours. We'll go across. We've got Sean Ward to the left, Jim Irvin into the middle here. Who else we got for you?
Another player probably who I wish had stayed at the Blues for longer. Albert Watson of Larne, absolutely amazing centre half. Won everything bar the League Cup at Linfield. An absolute rock at the back. And yeah, probably one of those players who I wish hadn't moved on, but here we are. He's come back to the old blue crew here. And my right back, I'm going to steal Marcus Kane from the Glens. Again, really excellent player. Probably one that doesn't get the credit he deserves, even from a lot of Glen men. He sort of goes under the radar, I think. But yeah, I think Marcus Kane would be an excellent right back for me, and I'll take him, no problem.
That's a real sturdy back four, full of experience. And you mentioned Albert Watson there. That's a player who, when he left the Blues, you kind of thought, well, that's his time of football over. Didn't he go to Canada? Him and Darryl Fordyce had a bit of a.
Yeah, I think it was like Edmonton United or something along those
Mhm.
lines. And I'm not sure whether it was him or Darryl Fordyce ended up in Iceland at one stage. But yeah, obviously came back to Ballymena and then made the move down to Larne. Yeah, so again, as you say, probably one of those players. I've actually just checked it there. It was Albert Watson with the KR Reykjavik in between his stage at Edmonton and Ballymena. So yeah, probably one of those players that didn't really expect to come back to the Irish League, but he's come back absolutely fine.
Absolutely. It's one of those players who've went out, used that experience, and have come back almost a better pro. And when I think of Albert Watson, I think of just that rotation of players who seem to go through that Linfield back two after Bailey and Winky were gone. It just seemed to be a bit of a carousel. Who was going to be the person? And you had Watson there for a while. You had Stafford there up until recently. And now it feels like there's a new generation of players solidifying themselves. Obviously, Callagher's the main guy there. But when you think of Linfield centre halves, there's a myriad of great players who have been there. It's always been a real strength of the team.
Definitely has. I think during the Finney era was probably the only time that I don't remember our defence looking really solid. Probably because he was signing players that didn't really have enough Irish League experience in a lot of ways. But as you say there, Jimmy coming in and has played so many games and had so many big moments. I think he's actually just played his 350th game there recently in our loss to Carrick. But yeah, massive player for us, and we did really miss him in that European run. I think Roscoe and Big Ben Hall, how could you miss him? But yeah, those two have their own positives and negatives, but I think they both look better players beside Jimmy Callagher.
He's the real rock for you guys. Talking about rocks, come on, Lisburn Weavers. We're going to have 3 absolute diamonds at the back, and they're all going to be young pups if the rules are anything to go by. So in any order, I'll get them written down. Who are your 3 centre backs?
Absolutely. So we've got Luke Turner.
Interesting.
We've got Connor Keeley. We've got Aidan Wilson, which Mark will be loving me. I've said that.
He loves Aidan Wilson, does our own.
You know what? I'm all of a sudden the biggest Aidan Wilson fan. I don't know if you guys have had much like blowback or whatever. And again, look, I haven't really had any blowback. I'm usually quite neutral, but I say a few things. I usually let my guests say things, and I hide my opinion by saying somebody else said it, and I'm just firing it on here. But I said Aidan Wilson, that's a big loss to Crusaders. Oh, it's going to be great for Glentoran. And a random, and look, I'm not taking a huff here. Some, Crusaders fan was like, you're talking nonsense here, lads. Sure, he was only our 3rd best defender. Am I not right in thinking Aidan Wilson's been like man of the match, like 4 out of the 5 games or something like that? Like, he's scored goals, everything. Like, I have been vindicated. I feel like retweeting that fella every single time, being like, I saw him get man of the match there.
No, you absolutely should.
Maybe that just makes a wee better boy, but yeah, Aidan Wilson being great for you guys this season.
Outstanding. Definitely the thing that we were missing last year. We had Patrick McLean and Keelan Marriott centre back, 2 very talented defenders, but I think the year before last season we had one of the best defences in the league, and last year it was just awful. So I don't know if it was maybe the loss of Luke McCulloch through injury, or if it was just Keelan Marriott and Paddy McLean didn't have that same chemistry as McLean and McCulloch had, but Wilson and McLean really seem to have clicked this season, and it seems to be the change at the back. Marin's obviously, he's a bit lighter than Wilson. He's not really a hard-hitting centre-back. He's more of a delicate centre-back. He can dribble around attackers. He loves to get the skills out. He can pick out a pass. But Wilson just seems to be this no-nonsense, hard-hitting, can score headers, and he can also play a good pass as well. But he just seems to be what we were missing last year, and hopefully he can. I know he had a bad injury last year at Crusaders. Hopefully he can kind of keep fit and continue to be that rock at the back. And
talk about big rocks at the back. I don't think there gets any bigger than big Connor Keeley. I feel like I have to say that because for where he plays, a player I've always looked at and thought, you look class, you look like a big, proper Irish League player. But, he's broad as well. He's a very impressive player, and if I was playing Football Manager, I haven't played Irish League Football Manager for a long time, but it feels like if I was to jump on there, he's like very young with lots of little stars telling me he's brilliant for the future.
Absolutely. He's such a threat from set pieces as well. I think that's where he really becomes a threat for Ballymena, who obviously have Ross Redmond on set pieces typically, and such a good deliverer of the ball. So Connor Keeley, I think he actually has quite a good goal scoring record at Ballymena as well. He pops up with a few. But yeah, big threat from set pieces, so I think he fits into my team quite nicely there.
And then, of course, we also have Luke Turner, not a player who's been in this league for a long time, but clearly give you a little twinkle in your eye. What is about Luke Turner that's going to be a keystone of this Lisburn Weavers backline?
He had a terrific season last year with Johnny Addis, and that partnership was really what strengthened Cliftonville at the back. Mark and I speak about him all the time on our podcast. Like, for such a young player, he's so experienced, and we cannot believe that Aberdeen didn't extend his contract. I think there were teams in England looking for him as well at some point at the start of the summer, but somehow he's managed to be back at Cliftonville for this season, which I think not even Cliftonville fans expected. But yeah, I think he just adds something else to that defence. Obviously, a left back. He's been playing left back this season as well, so also quite versatile, comfortable with the ball at his feet, and he can make some bursting attacks should he need to.
Loving this. We've got clear identities. I kind of said, what, boys, you can kind of pick whatever you want, play about with it, but you've come in really strong with clear personalities, this team, and I am absolutely loving this. Mark, I look towards your midfield there, or maybe you're playing them up top, but midfield, are we sticking 4 fellas into this old blue crew midfield, or how many was sticking?
Gone for 3 in the midfield.
Oh, and is McMenamin one of them?
No, he's not.
Talk me through these 3, and is there a particular palette of players that you wanted to all combine? Did that come into your mind, or were you just like, best players possible, It's like Chelsea 2003, 2004. Just get them in, and we'll worry about how it works later.
I've sort of gone a bit of tactics and a bit of who I actually like as a player. One of my midfielders will start with Andy Mitchell.
Okay.
Carrick, I've gone for him because I love watching him when he was at the Blues. I had the displeasure of watching him when he was at Rangers back in the day, playing against like East Stirling and all those wonderful teams. But I have much better memories of him playing for Linfield. Had a really massive influence in the win against Carabao, the 3-2 game at Windsor, getting I think two or three assists in that game. Um, but yeah, I've always loved him, and obviously we have seen this season how good he is at those wonder goals. Yeah, two very different finishes, I would suggest, that he scored in the past couple of weeks.
Why do you feel it never worked out for him at Linfield?
Probably because Linfield are just blessed with so many excellent holding midfielders. And no matter how much you think a player's good, you can't play six midfielders in the one game. So he's coming through at the same time as Mulgrew's obviously been there forever. And yeah, Stevie Fallon was probably one of the other selections that you would have had in the midfield. But I'm glad that he's getting the recognition he deserves now in the league, because he was one of those excellent players. And of course, Stephen Lowry was coming through that midfield team as well at the time. One of those players who really went under the radar for us, but won us many, many games in that treble winning season of the 2016-17 season. Mitchell's one of those players that I would love to have back at the Blues, even for backup, but at the minute he's playing for Old Blue Crew, of course. Big moves for him. Another one of my midfielders, I've gone Philip Lowry. As we have all noticed during this season, he is the man for the
Absolutely.
64th, 65th minute goal. So if you need that goal midway through the second half, he is your man. Again, a player who Linfield probably didn't appreciate until he was gone, sort of thing. Obviously has had spells down at Portadown and now is playing at the Cruise. Again, probably one of those players you wouldn't pick in your fantasy team, because he's not going to get you 10 goals. Well, we didn't think he was going to get you 10 goals. He might get the 10
Well,
goals,
maybe this year he's gonna
but yeah,
the suit check
maybe.
of the Irish League fancy potentially this year. But yeah, like a player I absolutely love, and it's mainly because he's just so big and tall, and he's got those big long legs just to pick the ball away. He's like tall, but he's strong in the tackle. He's always there to kind of win those headers, the big 50-50 balls where people don't dive in. I look at him, and I'm sure other players do, with just green envy eyes, because you think, wow, he is just such a hard-working player, but there's not a lot of bite, and you would think sometimes that would be his weakness, that he's not got a whole lot of like anger and aggression, but he almost doesn't need it, because it gives him such a cool head, and it's just such a hard working player throughout. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why you're bringing him back for this Old Blue Crew.
Definitely.
Like when I think of him at the Blues, like I'm trying to think what's the best era so far of Philip Lowry, and is it maybe at the Blues? Like it feels like he was in this strange era at Linfield. Like he was good and he was strong, and he obviously, I don't think he left for other reasons, but you know, what when you look back on his time at Linfield, do you look back on as a real key player, or is he really grown as he got older, do you
I
think?
think is probably his most consistent and his most successful spell for himself has been his time with Crusaders here. The goals that have come at the minute have been absolutely amazing. But again, we look back in his time at Linfield, and he probably came in a bit of a he didn't really fit any sort of missing pieces for the Blues at that stage, because again you had Michael Galt, you had Jamie Mulgrew, you also had a younger Robbie Garrett coming through at that same time, and that's in that Linfield team. So unfortunately, he's one of those players that just didn't get the game time that he maybe deserved at Linfield, but an absolutely excellent player, as we have all agreed on.
Have you perhaps let slip on who's going to make this trio? Who's your third and final midfield dynamo in this Old Blue Crew midfield?
I haven't actually let it slip. I've kept this one under wraps. Owen might not like me for this one. I've gone for maybe a more attacking player, but I've gone for Lorcan Ford.
Wow,
Um,
no Robbie
yeah,
Garrett.
no Robbie Garrett.
Was
I
that
I
a
can't.
tough decision?
No, I can't afford any more red cards. So yeah, Lorcan Ford probably. this season has been a real star for Newry. Owen, of course, is pretty sure he should have had a red card at the Oval. I'm actually pretty sure he should have had a red card the day that we were playing them down at the Newry Showgrounds. But
Yeah,
a
yeah,
player with
boys.
so much talent and so much ability as well. Probably one I don't really want to speak for him. Could have maybe made it across the water if he had got those chances at a higher level at Linfield, sort of thing. Nothing against him at all. I think he's an excellent player. But yeah, he's probably my attacking midfielder out of those three. Going forward, he looks excellent, and he's also, as we've said, got that bit of feistiness in him, to put a tackle in maybe where he shouldn't. But yeah, he's the third member of that excellent midfield three that I've built.
He's a player going through this. I'll be so young. Renaissance sounds ridiculous, but he's back in the league. He's flavor of the month again. He was this young kid that everybody thought was going to kick on and do amazing, and unfortunately it just didn't work out. He's went away. He's even dropped down a division. And when I think of Lorcan Ford and I think, well, what could he be and who could he be, and they're not exactly the same players, but you have to look
Jordan
at
Stewart reminds me of an awful lot.
why's that.
The temperament of it and his ability as well. Jordan Stewart was always quite a like don't want to say aggressive, but he wasn't afraid to get stuck in. And he's Logan Ford's quite skillful like him as well, and he's obviously got the eye for goal. But Jordan obviously broke through at such a young age, quite similar to Logan Ford as well. But I just think obviously Jordan Stewart went across the water, Logan Ford stayed here, but it's still not too late for him to kind of break through. And Mark's making out like I have this dislike for Logan Ford with these what he said. To be fair, whenever we were previewing that game, he was one of the players I thought will really probably struggle against him because it's the type of player that the Glens defence you typically don't do too well against, the type of one that has the capability to literally run right through you. But no, he probably was quite lucky to get away without a red card that game. But that's just part of how he plays, and he did just about miss out in the Lisburn Weavers squad, unfortunately. But he was one of them.
I was thinking that when he said that, I thought, you know what? That's the type of young player who can somewhat play up top, maybe on the wing, where, in my short time we've talked, and I thought, you know what? Maybe he can kind of see where he can fit in. And if I was Lorcan Ford or someone's working with Lorcan Ford, I would be having a big poster of Matthew Shevlin, and I'd go, look what this guy's done. You were both young starlets in this league where everybody was hyping you up. You went to Linfield, you have gone, you are rebuilding yourself. And look, they're very different players, but I can still see a scenario or a world where Lorcan Ford, a bit like now Shelvin now, is one of the most talked about players in the league, and it's probably up to him just finding that position now. Maybe it does seems to be up top on the wing on the left. Screams to me that he's maybe born to be playing in one of these top teams with the three at the top, a wide man potentially. So a lot of potential there. But Lorcan Ford, not in the Weavers. Who's in this midfield?
Yeah, so I'll go for my two players sitting just behind Ben Kennedy in midfield. I have, unbelievably, you would not believe he's 25, Fuad Sule.
What? Okay.
25 one.
Yeah.
No way.
All right, we're getting that boy. We're cutting them in half and counting the rings here. 25.
Yeah.
I'll believe it.
I
I'll
look it
allow
up there. 20th of January 1997, 25 years old, Fuad Sule.
I can't believe that. Owen.
I think he, at what he does, one of the best players in the league. Whenever the Glens go down for Park, especially, we don't get a touch of the ball midfield. He's non-stop. Maybe not the most technical player, and maybe not the best attacking midfielder in the league, but what he does is he works hard to get the ball back, and he distributes it well to other players around him, which have those abilities. And I think within my team anyway, the likes of Ben Kennedy in that team, that's how his role is going to fit in there. He's going to be the hard-working midfielder, win the ball back, and get it to Ben Kennedy's feet.
He's your water carrier there, isn't he? He's your Kante. He's your Michael Essien. He's the boy that's just going to pick up the ball in between the gaps there between midfield and defence. And no, I can see it all shaping up. Well, if he's in this midfield, is there anybody beside him there, or who else is swarming in this collection of players you've got?
Yeah, so I've got Ben Kennedy and Sule, who aren't the most physical or strongest midfielders, so I'm going to pair them with Josh Kelly.
Wow, okay. Josh Kelly.
You were going to say someone else there. I think I caught. Who are you thinking there?
I don't know. I was just trying to think who's the young midfielder, and it probably goes to show that he is maybe underlooked. Look, he's a young player in this league, but somebody who is growing in stature. People are starting to hear about him. He's adding a few more goals to his game, and I think a lot of people would probably be talking about him more if he was in a team that was winning. But right now, he's in a team that just kind of seems to be stuck, not knowing where they're going at the minute. There's only been a few games that have been played. But what are the qualities that he's offering for you to make it into the Weavers?
Well, he's now Ballymeni's captain after Leroy Miller left, so I think he's at such a young age to be appointed captain. I think he's only 23, which is crazy, and it says a lot about what David Jeffrey thinks about him. He could be that young leader that I'm looking for in the team. That midfielder that can get stuck into the tackles, can win the balls in the air, and kind of tie that midfield trio all together.
I like it.
He's also got an eye for goal as well. I think he already popped up with one against Dungannon this season for Ballymena, so he can grab a goal when needed too.
So far, we've got 2 Ballymena players in this Weavers team. Clearly you like their youth production here. Who else have you filled? You haven't filled. Well, you've got 2 Cliftonville defenders in your back line. Not the strongest here. That's probably because they're missing Levi Ives. So there's plenty of scope. We've only got 1 Glentoran player in there. I did not think, obviously I didn't know what rules or what themes you would follow for either of you guys, but I cannot believe we have not 1 Linfield player amongst these players so far. Of course, we have players on both sides that can change that, and we'll go back to back then. Mark, you have Conor McMenamin, left or right, hardly matters, I guess.
I've gone on the left.
Okay.
Just to fit in who my right midfielder is. Centre forward for me in this 3 is going to be Matthew Shevlin. Really hot topic of conversation in the league at the minute. The league's top goal scorer at the minute, of course, in 7 goals, and he's playing out of his skin. He looks like a completely different player than the one that left Linfield. So I can't believe he's doing so well. To be quite honest with you, I think I wanted to say that he's already halfway to his goal tally from last season, and there's only been 5 games so far. So yeah, definitely flavour of the month. Matthew Shevlin. Who knows? Will he continue? I certainly hope he stops a wee bit when he's playing the Blues anyway. But he can score as many as he wants against the Glens, no problem. Score 5, 6, 7 if he wants down at the Oval. And from my right mid, another player who I always say to Owen, why did the Blues let him go? Why did it happen? But Ross Clark from the Cruise is my right midfielder. Definitely one of the best players in the league, I think anyway, one of the best players in that Crusaders team behind Kennedy. Often goes under the radar, but excellent delivery, good goal scoring ability for a player who's forced out wide so often. But yeah, I definitely think there's room for him in this Old Blue crew.
He's a funny player, Ross Clark, because he doesn't present himself in a way. You don't look at him and go, oh, he's this tricky winger, and he's in this strange place in that Cruise team where you often see him pushing forward, but it's, he's usually running those channels. And what is it about him? Is it mainly about what he's doing now at the Cruise, or was there stuff he was doing in a blue shirt that you still harbour for?
Well, his ability to get assists with no boots on is one thing that I've never seen anybody else do. At game against Dungannon, at the sort of renovating stage at Windsor Park, it always sticks with me. But yeah, even in the Irish Cup final and stuff, he didn't really play his best that game. Owen and I were both at that game. I don't think he played his best in that game. Didn't really shine as he can. But I think, especially in the European games that we were at, he looked the real deal. He looked fast. He looked strong, and he wasn't miles off, those European sides that we were watching. I think he certainly had an easier game against Bruno's Magpies, but against Basel, I thought he was one of their best players, the Cruise, in that 1-1 draw at Seaview. And if he scored a great goal at the Oval as well, I think. Obviously, the game didn't finish as he would have liked, but he's had a great start to the season. And yeah, at the minute, he was probably one of the first on this team sheet that I had.
Wow, I really am surprised by that. But you're absolutely right. He was super sharp against the Glens and looked as though we was going to kick on. And he's such a different player compared to Hitley on the other side. You know, they offer lots of different things, and clearly you're absolutely right. His ball in is one of them, and particularly with so many of these big oaks of a player that Crusaders have, he's happy to sit there all day and pick out these lanky boys all day, and that's what he's there for, and plenty to prove. I think McMenamin is definitely over the age limit for the Lisburn Weavers, but anybody from that top line make it into Lisburn's newest team?
Yes, so I've gone with one of Mark's picks as well, and Matthew Shevlin. Already spoke about him. What a season he's having, and still a very much a young player. I know at Ballymena there were talks of him going across to England. I think it might have been Crystal Palace at the time. So at such a young age when he broke through, there were clubs looking at them. Obviously, then he went to Linfield, didn't get the game time that he wanted, but it feels like he's really got a second chance now under Warren Kearney to prove himself, and he's absolutely doing that this season. I'm not sure if it was a coincidence, but whenever Curtis Allen moved to Coleraine, it really, I don't know if it was maybe behind the scenes, having Curtis Allen there as a bit of guidance, but it really seemed to help Shevlin take it to the next level. And I think ever since then, he's really kicked on. And even now Curtis Allen's moved away from the club, it seems to be that it's kind of stuck with Shevlin, and he's still scoring for fun.
He's absolutely the main man there this season. And for me, I think it's a fact that they've brought in all these new players. They're almost like distractions they're taking away. I know the likes of Glacken has been there last season, but when you have new Evan McLaughlin coming in, you have Lee Lynch progressing the ball, that's creating spaces for Shevlin. And on top of that, I think he has really worked on his game. His positioning has been even better than before. And you talk about Curtis Allen there, that's a key player where you look at his goals this season for Carrick, and bar maybe that one where the ball went against Glenavon where he kind of almost comes back and semi-volleys it back in. Like, they've all been just, he's there and he's knocking it in. There's been plenty of goals like that. You know, there's no Andrew Mitchell worldies, but you have to be in there. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. You have to have the skill. You have to have the endurance to get in there and do it. And those are the skills that I'm sure other teams are looking at and going, that's the player we need. And I wonder, even as early as January or this time next summer, based on the first couple of games, he feels like he's the first player that will be on everybody's lips and minds thinking he's not going to be in this league next year.
Absolutely. If he keeps up, I think he's only 23 years old now, so huge potential if he can keep that going. You know, Jay Donnelly's come into the Glens and had 2 really good seasons of goal scoring, and he's, I think, 27, 28 now, and people are talking about him going across the water. So a young player like Shevlin, if he could do the same thing, people would absolutely be saying the same thing. I think he got 13 goals last season, but already 7 this season in the league is crazy. So he'll be hoping he can keep it up.
Injury-free is going to be key to him in his future, but a brilliant player and a key part of both these teams. We have our first crossover. Do we have any other crossovers via the Weavers? Of course, that can be in the old Blue Crew as well.
Yeah, so I'll finish off my forward line here. Mark's not going to have picked him because he's not excellent field, but I've gone for actually an ex-Glentoran player in Paul O'Neill, one of those players that somewhat regret that he left the club. Obviously, we got Conor McMenamin in part of the swap deal there, so I'm obviously delighted the Glens got Conor McMenamin out of that. He's hit the ground running and continued to do so at the Glens, but we did lose Paul O'Neill in that deal, and it was one of those players that you felt like he wasn't quite finished in his development. He was always going to continue to get better. I'm actually surprised it didn't really work out for him at Cliftonville, but obviously with the likes of Joe Gormley and Ryan Curran still scoring goals for them, he didn't really get the game time that he wanted. But I think at Larne now, with Lee Bonus up front, those two will be a dangerous pairing and a very, very much different players. But I think Bonus is really that hard-working striker, and Paul O'Neill is that poacher, always in the right place at the right time. So those two make a good combination, and obviously both 2 young strikers. I had Lee Bonus on my short list as well. But
I was going to say, you have Sule in the middle. You can only pick 2 from each team. So was it a clear shootout between Bonus or O'Neill, or do you feel O'Neill as a player just offers far more and you've just seen more of him? Because when you think of young strikers in the league, I think if you were to do a top 5, definitely a top 10, O'Neill and Bonus is definitely on that list. So what is it about O'Neill that pipped the post if it was down to those two?
Obviously, two fantastic players, but I would just pick O'Neill over Bonus. I think he's probably a more well-rounded player. Lee Bonus is a fantastic target man and a poacher, but I just think in other aspects of this game, Paul O'Neill's probably a bit more well-rounded, and both big, strong fellas. Like, so, I think either of them would be scoring goals for fun for you up there, and obviously both of them have a bit of pace about them.
I think you're absolutely right. And was there any other players? I'm starting to write down ex-Linfield players for Mark, but for you, Owen, we talked about Bonus there. Was there any other young players that you were thinking about or considering that either just wouldn't fit because you had too many players from a different team, or just didn't fit in, or what was it? Who were on the periphery that you're kind of sending a sorry, maybe next time cards to?
There were a few, to be fair. Obviously, I touched on Jethro Barr at the start there for the goalkeeping position. Stephen Fallon was one that I wasn't sure between him and Ben Kennedy who to go for.
He's under 25 as well. That's
I think
amazing.
I think he's 25 as well.
Wow.
Let's fact check that too, but
Yes, mate, 25, 3rd of March, 97.
25, yeah, yeah. So he's one of those ones that's just been around the league for so long. You just assume is older than that, but no, I think he's a fantastic player, really, really good player, and I wanted to try and fit him into that midfield, but I just thought Sule's that energy in midfield. Josh Kelly's the dominant figure in there, and Ben Kennedy's the playmaker. And Ben Kennedy and Stephen Fallon are probably the most similar players there if you were to compare them. And I think Fallon's all-round game is probably better, but in terms of the number 10 I'm looking for, Ben Kennedy just about edged it for me.
I've been starting to write down some excellent foot players for you, Mark. Was Garrett obviously wasn't in consideration because of the red cards? I guess between Matthew Shevlin and Allen, you just went for youth there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Probably a couple of Crusaders defenders didn't actually make it in. And Chris Haggerty and Josh Robinson as well. Obviously, Josh Robinson played for the Crews and the Blues on the same day, as everybody can remember, when both signed at the same time. If we're going outside the league, I'd love to say Charlie Allen, but I think he's unfortunately left the league and moved on to pastures greener over in Leeds. But yeah, a lot of players in and around the league that you do forget about, like even played for the Blues. But those are probably the three that were very close. Obviously, you've also got Josh Carson, who's ripping it up a good wee bit up at Coleraine. He's had a really good impact and probably played better than he ever played for the Blues up at Coleraine, definitely this season anyway.
Just on the theme of any kind of old blue crew, bringing them all back. Over the years, was there a player, regardless if they went on to do great things or not? Do you remember? Because, Linfield, ultimately, with so much competition for places, that's a team that has to go through the squad, have to let players go, even if there's still potentially a bit of growing going on there. Is there any other players where you look at and go, that really hurt when they had to go?
For me, most recently, it has been Shane Lavery. Owen knows fine rightly how much of a great player I thought, well, I know that he is, and he's who knows, will he make it as far as he can over in England? Obviously, got off to a very, very good start over at Blackpool, but sort of pulled back due to injury last season. But yeah, I think he's definitely got the ability. Whether he'll get the chance over there in England, I don't know. I really hope he does. Another one probably that hurt me when he left was Paul Smith was an absolute character for the Blues. Just did everything so well. Played his heart out in every game. Probably one of the only good things that Warren Feeney ever did was bringing him onto that squad. But that'll be on his CV. Paul Smith, another excellent player who has started firing them in for Accrington at the minute, which is really good to see. And hopefully gets his well-deserved place in the Northern Ireland team coming up.
Absolutely, that's a man who really wants to play in that Harland Wolf yellow kit for sure. Very quickly, you also pitched the idea of doing managers. Owen, what under 25-year-old manager did you get, or did you just go for somebody, the young whippersnapper of the league? Who's your manager?
Got to go for the polar opposite here. We need an experienced head to coach this young and youthful team. We've went for David Jeffrey.
But he knows nothing about TikTok. All these lads are going to be Instagram, and he knows nothing about this.
He doesn't need to. He'll bring them in and he'll wise them all up. He'll be like, lads, you're here to play football. And his strong discipline and man management will get this team through the divisions.
But also, it's going to be a case of every time he does like a interview after the game, it'd be like, young Paul O'Neill and young Connor Keeley and young Declan Dunn and young, I don't know, is there a long way of saying Joshua Kelly? You know, he'll do all the long ones. And have you just stolen the thunder from your good mate Mark? Mark, who's your manager?
I've picked Warren Feeney. No, I haven't. I've picked David Jeffrey, of course. Successful manager for Linfield, joint, of course, with Roy Coyle. 31 trophies each in their time at Linfield. Two absolute legends of the game. But I think, yeah, Davy's the man for this team. Knows how to manage these older guys like Jim Irvin, who might get a bit ahead of themselves. But it's probably one of those guys that Phil calls him gaffer after all those years. He's won it all.
So there you go. David Jeffrey and Matthew Shevlin in both teams. And I know there was different rules there, but not a single Heatley, Miller. Incredible. I really appreciate you guys jumping on. I'll not pick a winner, but just to remind everybody of the teams, we had the Lisburn Weavers, Declan Dunn at the back, Lyndon Kane, Luke Turner, Connor Keeley, Aidan Wilson and Levi Ives at the back, Sule and Josh Kelly in the midfield, Ben Kennedy approaching up attack midfield, and up top was Matthew Shevlin and Paul O'Neill, managed by David Jeffrey. And over to the old blue crew, the ex-Linfield 11, managed by David Jeffrey, Gareth Dean in nets, Marcus Kane, Albert Watson, Jim Irvin and Sean Ward. An experienced backline, but hopefully an astute one. Then we had Andrew Mitchell and Philip Lowry in midfield, with Lorcan Ford just ahead of him. Conor McMenamin on one side, Ross Clark on the other, and also Matthew Shevlin, the man, firing in the goals. Well played, fellas. Really well played. Excellent teams. And of course, if you guys want to have a think, you're welcome to do it. If you're listening, have a think of who you pick. Rules are 2 players from a team. Make whatever gimmick you want. And on Twitter, I'll try and get both these teams out so you can receive praise, or more than likely people telling you should have both picked Robbie Garrett. But fellas, how have you found this league so far? Obviously, just from a general point of view, I think it's been a really exciting start to the league. I've loved the Friday games, and so far, plenty of great games. Yes, the top 6 domination has continued, but it's been brilliant to talk about. And you know, as much as people are still hyping up Linfield are the favourites and that whole drama there, it's still anyone's to play for, with Glentoran currently sitting top and Coleraine looking absolutely magic every time they're going forward.
It's been a fantastic start to the league. There's been a bit of everything and a lot of red cards too. But I think, yeah, it's going to be really interesting this season. We say it every year that the league's just so tight. It's hard to pick a winner. But I think the longer we can kind of keep that top 6 close together and like the top 6 all kind of chasing that number 1 spot, the better the league will be. It feels like we've got like 2 or 3 big games every weekend now as well. At bottom 6, obviously constantly improving. And Mark and I did a prediction at the start of the season. There's so many teams that have either like overperformed or underperformed way past our expectations, and it just goes to show how difficult it is to call a winner at any stage of the season, really.
And fellas, I'm not talking about any games. I'm still away, but that's going to be your bread and butter while I'm doing that. You'll be doing it every week, just like I have. If people like the things you're thinking and the sayings you're saying, where can they get more of you guys reviewing game-to-game action with plenty of stats from Owen? Where can they listen to the Flying Nets pod?
Yeah, they can find us on Spotify, and they can also find us on Twitter and Instagram as well. Can follow our socials and ensure not to miss out on any podcasts whenever we publish them.
Lads, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining me. Go check out the Fly Nets podcast for some reaction to whatever's been going down. You can go and have a natter about these teams on Twitter. Until next time, see you soon.